We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The words that killed us. There was applause. 100 people stood clapping in their gowns and polished shoes, a sea of cameras raised toward the stage. Parents, mentors, lovers, all watching their graduates step into a new future. And there I was, seated in the third row, aisle seat, holding a bouquet of lilies, her favorite. I'd worn the blazer she picked out for me 2 years ago, before she left for her MBA program. I even polished my shoes. Thought she'd like that. She stepped up to the podium, radiant in her deep blue robe, her hair tied neatly, smile wide and calculated. She looked like everything we'd worked for. The dean handed her a small plaque for academic excellence. She took it gracefully and leaned into the mic. There are so many people I want to thank. I leaned forward slightly, ready to record. To my parents, for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. To my professors, who challenged me more than I thought I could handle. To my peers, who became family. She glanced sideways. I smiled, waiting. And to Arjun, the love of my life. You got me through this. This is as much yours as it is mine. My thumb slipped on the record button. The screen froze. I didn't hear the applause. I only heard the silence inside me. Hey, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story. I have one small request. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to join the journey. It means a lot to me. And trust me, even better stories are coming. Now let's continue story. 3 years earlier, we were in our kitchen. She was crying, not out of sadness, but stress. Her acceptance letter had arrived. Harvard Business School. 2 years. Full tuition, $180,000. We didn't have it. She'd applied for a partial scholarship. Rejected. I told her we'd figure it out. She said she couldn't ask her parents. They'd already done enough. She didn't want to delay her future again. She wanted to go now. So I made a choice. I gave up on applying to graduate school myself. Sold my car. Took a second job in the evenings. We moved out of our 2-bedroom apartment into a 1-bedroom in a cheaper neighborhood. She cried again when I told her. Hugged me so tight, I could feel her breath shaking. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because you matter more than anything else. I believed that. Every word. I thought we were building something, sacrificing now so we could win later. But it's funny what you can miss when you're too busy surviving. The missed birthdays. The unanswered calls from her. The subtle way she stopped asking me how I was doing. The first time she mentioned his name, Arjun, was in passing. A group partner. They were working late, she said. I remember I joked, should I be jealous? She laughed. He's married. I didn't laugh back. 2 months into her first semester, our anniversary came. I had it marked. We used to take a night off every year. No phones, no plans. Just us. A tradition. This year, she said she couldn't make it. Big case study deadline. Group work. They were meeting at Arjun's place, since his apartment was closer. It's not personal, babe. I just can't afford distractions right now. Distractions. That's what I've become. So I picked up a bottle of wine and left it on the counter. Ordered in her favorite sushi and sat at our small dining table alone. Candles lit. Laptop open, waiting for her on Zoom. She never logged in. At 11:47 p.m., she sent a message. Sorry. Still working. Don't wait up. Love you. I left the wine unopened. Put the sushi in the fridge. Sat on the couch and watched the screensaver bounce around in the dark. But I told myself it was fine. She was under pressure. I remembered what pressure felt like too. I was pulling double shifts, juggling client deadlines and back-to-back rideshare nights. I told myself we were a team, that this was just a phase. I didn't know I was funding her escape plan. It was around 2:15 a.m. when I heard her phone vibrate. She'd left it on the nightstand, face down. I was half asleep, but the light caught my eye. One notification. WhatsApp. The name read, Arjun, Work Group. Message, can't stop thinking about earlier. Still smells like you here. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She was asleep next to me, or pretending to be. Her breathing was too even, like someone waiting to see if I'd noticed. I got up. Slowly. Went to the bathroom. Shut the door. Not to cry. Not yet. Just to think. When I came out 10 minutes later, she was sitting up, phone in hand. Hey, everything okay? Yeah, just couldn't sleep. I pointed at the phone. Message from your group? She glanced at it. Opened WhatsApp. The message was gone. He jokes like that sometimes. Dumb sense of humor. He sends memes at night. I usually delete them before you see because, well, I know how you overthink. Then she kissed me on the cheek and turned off the light. Just like that. That night, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy with a truth I wasn't ready to face. Not because I didn't see it, but because I did. And knowing it would mean letting go of everything I'd sacrificed for her. I started hearing his name more. Always in passing. Casual. Natural. Arjun nailed the presentation today. Arjun got the internship at that firm in Mumbai. Arjun says we should pitch the case differently. He's got a sharp eye. At first, I tried to engage. Tried to be interested in her world. Asked questions. Smiled. Played the supportive husband. He sounds like a genius, I said once. She smirked. He's smart, but not grounded like you. I don't know why that line made my stomach turn. Maybe because it sounded rehearsed. Like something you say to a guy you pity. One night, I offered to pick her up after class. Her usual train line was delayed, and it was pouring. She hesitated, then finally said okay. I waited outside her campus gates. Headlights on. Window cracked. She came out with him. They were walking close. Laughing. Her hand brushed his arm. She saw me before he did. Her face changed. Tense. Like a student caught cheating on a test. When she got in the car, I glanced at the guy walking off behind her. Was that Arjun? She looked away. Yeah, he's harmless. The lie wasn't in her words. It was in how fast she said them. The following weekend, she said she was going on an overnight group retreat. Something about off-site team bonding before final presentations. It wasn't unusual. Her program was intense, fast-paced, all-consuming. She packed light. Just one duffel. Left her perfume behind, which was strange. I offered to drop her at the station. She refused. Said Arjun and another classmate were already picking her up. She kissed my cheek. That same guilty, polite kiss. And left. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling. I logged into our shared Amazon account to see if she'd ordered anything recently, just looking for something to distract myself. There it was, spa for two, couples package, Taj retreat, Alibag. Delivery email, her inbox. Not mine. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even rage. Just sat at the kitchen table, reading the invoice again and again. Next morning, I walked to the trash bin and found a receipt in her coat pocket. Room service, 2 lattes. Chocolate fondue. Signature, Arjun R. She didn't even try to hide it. That's what broke me most. It wasn't just that she was cheating. It's that she assumed I'd never look close enough to notice. She wasn't afraid of getting caught. She was convinced I wouldn't do a damn thing about it. She told me not to come. Her exact words were, "It's not a big event. Just a seminar. You'll be bored. Trust me." I went anyway. Not out of jealousy. Not even suspicion. At least that's what I told myself. I just wanted to see her in her element. This world I had built for her, but was never truly invited into. I waited near the exit of the lecture hall as students trickled out in pairs and clusters. She stepped out 5 minutes later, smiling, notebook tucked under her arm. And next to her, him. Arjun. Taller than I expected. Confident. The kind of guy who moves like the world always says yes to him. They stood outside talking. She touched his arm while laughing at something. He leaned in close. When they finally noticed me, her body stiffened like someone caught mid-theft. He turned. She introduced us with a tone too cheerful, too tight. Arjun, this is my husband. I extended a hand. He gave a polite nod. Shook it. No tension. No guilt. Just another man meeting a stranger. Then she said something to him low, quick. He smiled. They did that thing cheaters do, shared a look they thought no one noticed. They didn't hug goodbye. Not really. But his hand lingered on her back just a second too long. And she didn't move away. She walked in late that night, clothes still fresh, makeup untouched. If she was tired from a long seminar, she didn't look it. I had made coffee. Not because I wanted to talk, because I needed to see if she'd lied to my face while sipping something I made with my own hands. She sat down, told me about her day, how the guest speaker was fascinating, how she missed me, how exhausted she was. I waited. Then, Arjun's pretty sharp. We're thinking of entering the joint consulting competition together. She paused, watching for my reaction. I didn't blink. He seems close. She laughed, dismissive. He's just a friend. You're reading into things. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. That's what stunned me the most. The cruelty wasn't in the cheating. It was in pretending we were still us. It was in touching me with the same hand she touched him. A few weeks passed. I didn't say a word. I needed space to think, not to react. I knew enough to suspect, not enough to destroy. But one night, it hit me differently. We were in bed. She was facing the wall, curled slightly. I placed my hand gently on her waist, just to feel closeness, just to remind myself what it felt like to hold her without suspicion. She didn't move. I whispered, "You awake?" No answer. I leaned closer. "Can we talk?" Still nothing. Then I noticed her breathing wasn't steady, not relaxed, controlled, timed, pretend sleep. She wasn't asleep. She just didn't want to talk. I lay there, hands still resting on her waist, trying to remember the last time we had sex without it feeling like a transaction. Trying to remember the last time she kissed me with her eyes open. And then I remembered something she once said, years ago, back when things were still real. The moment you stop feeling safe to speak, the relationship is already over. So I pulled my hand back, turned the other way, and let silence speak for both of us. That night, I stopped being her husband and started being something else. I arrived early, took a seat near the front, like a proud husband should. I held a bouquet I picked up on the way, white lilies, wrapped in soft paper. She once told me lilies reminded her of second chances. The room buzzed with families, friends, and futures being applauded into existence. Camera flashes. Laughter. Hope in 1,000 different forms. She texted me, "Be there soon. You didn't have to come all the way." I hadn't replied. A hush fell as the dean welcomed the graduates. Speeches began. One student cried while thanking his mother. Another cracked a joke about late-night pizza and missed deadlines. Light, clean, inspirational. Then her name was called. She walked up the steps, radiant, confident, a picture of accomplishment. Her robe hugged her like a crown she'd been waiting to wear her entire life. She took the mic. "Thank you all. I owe this to more people than I can name, but I'll try." She thanked her professors, her cohort, her parents, the university. Then she paused, just long enough. "And to Arjun, the love of my life. You were the calm in the storm, my strength when I doubted myself, and the reason I kept going. This degree belongs to you too." Applause erupted. I sat perfectly still, lilies in hand, smile frozen. The man next to me elbowed his son, whispering, "That must be Arjun." She never looked in my direction. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't just replaced me. She had erased me. After the ceremony, there were photos. Clusters of families crowding together. Her classmates posing with their certificates. Parents crying. Laughter everywhere. She walked toward me, calm as a Sunday morning. "You came," she said. "Of course I did," I replied. We posed for a picture, her parents on either side, her in the center, me at the edge like a distant cousin. She handed me her diploma to hold while she adjusted her hair. That's when Arjun appeared. No shame, no pretense. Just walked straight into the photo group like he belonged there. Her father introduced himself. Her mother complimented Arjun's perfect tie. The photographer snapped 3 pictures in a row. Arjun stood between them. Then someone said, "Let's get one of just the 3 of you." I wasn't asked to step out. I just wasn't asked to stay in. So I moved aside, quietly, politely, and I watched as they took that photo, the woman I gave my life to, standing between the man she thanked, and the parents who still thought I was the one paying her rent out of love. In a way, I suppose I was. Later that night, I stood outside her family's hotel room, waiting. I could hear them inside, chatting, laughing, celebrating her victory. She had left the door cracked open slightly while rushing to take a call. She'd gone out onto the balcony with Arjun. And that's when I heard it. Her mother's voice. "You really had us fooled, Beta. We thought your husband was footing everything." A chuckle. He helped a bit, but it was mostly Arjun. He was always the one pushing me to go for it. Emotionally, financially, everything. He believed in me from the start. Another voice, her father, this time. Well, I'm glad you finally found someone on your level. I didn't walk in, didn't speak. I just stood there, staring at the door. So this was the version of the story they got. Not the man who sold his car, who skipped meals to pay her tuition, who sat alone on anniversaries and turned off his own dreams. No, I was a footnote, a temporary sponsor, an obstacle quietly edited out of her biography. That night, I walked home in silence, left the flowers on a park bench, and when I got in, I opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Operation Truth. The first night back, she was exhausted. At least, that's what she said when she came through the door and dropped her heels at the entrance like a woman returning from war. She showered quickly, declined dinner, and crawled into bed facing the wall again. While she slept, I sat at the dining table, staring at her laptop bag. It wasn't revenge that drove me. Not yet. It was something simpler, the need to know. Not guess. Not wonder. Just know. She always used variations of the same passwords. Our anniversary. Her birth year. Our old dog's name. I typed in the first attempt. Arjun MBA 2025. The screen unlocked. My heart didn't race. No dramatic music. Just a flat, hollow thud in my chest. The first folder I opened was labeled Personal, Do Not Touch. Inside were screenshots of chats with Arjun, voice notes, photos, a Google Doc titled Our Future Plans. I opened it. Their vacation itinerary, wedding venue wish list, financial planning, a timeline, month by month. She had been planning a life with him using the money I earned. I paid for the first page of her new chapter. 2 days later, I bought a small GPS tracker. Not because I was uncertain, because I was done asking for clarity. She had stopped giving it. I would take it for myself now. It was simple, smaller than a matchbox. I placed it under the rear bumper of her car one morning while she showered, synced it to an app on my phone, tucked it deep into a folder marked Finance. That night, she said she was working late at the library. The tracker showed her car parked for 4 hours at an address in a gated residential complex. The same address I'd seen in one of the WhatsApp messages between her and Arjun. Your place is always a reset button. I can breathe again there. I didn't confront her. That's the difference between reaction and strategy. I watched. I waited. I noted. 2 days later, she lied again. Last-minute group meeting. Arjun's address again. Same pattern. Same timing. I didn't rage. Didn't text. Didn't let her see even a flicker of change in my eyes. That week, I smiled more than usual. Asked how her library hours were going. She smiled back. And like most people who think they're winning, she stopped being careful. The evidence was stacking. Every lie I recorded. Every location, every call log, every calendar event she forgot to hide. But it was one particular slip that finally pushed me from passive surveillance into planning mode. She was in the shower. Her phone buzzed. I glanced. An email notification. Order confirmation. Lavier Jewelers. Curiosity was no longer a crime. I tapped the screen. It unlocked. She hadn't changed the PIN. Too confident now. She thought I was too blind to ever look. The order summary made my blood still. Item. Platinum engagement ring, custom. Inscription. Found you late. Loved you fast. Buyer. Arjun R. Delivery. Friday. She was letting him propose. I stared at the receipt, the total, the message. The same woman who once told me she didn't believe in extravagant jewelry was now accepting a diamond I could never afford from a man I'd unknowingly helped her meet. I locked the phone, placed it back where it was, went into the living room, opened my laptop, and started outlining a timeline. Not of revenge, of consequences. Not screaming, not slashing tires, not public fights. This would be slow, intelligent, undeniable. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted her to look in the mirror when it was all over and see herself clearly for the first time. I knew I had options. I could have gone nuclear that night, forwarded her chats to her family, posted the screenshots online, crashed one of their cozy dinner dates with a single printout. But immediate exposure is emotional. It gives them the drama, the victim card. The chance to twist it all into he's crazy or he overreacted. So I wrote down 3 words: burn. Don't blow. I would ruin her version of the truth, not by shouting over it, but by letting her walk deeper into her own lie, one step at a time, until she ran out of exits. I began small, created a new email under a pseudonym, subscribed it to MBA job boards, events, networking newsletters, all forwarded directly to me. This way, I'd know exactly where she was supposed to be. I also created an encrypted folder with backups of every message, photo, and receipt. 2-factor authentication. External drive backup. One cloud, one offline. If she ever tried to paint me as unstable or delusional, I'd bury her in data. She gave me the materials. I just archived them. Like a prosecutor building a case, he already knows he's going to win. Guess what? I said one evening, tossing my backpack onto the couch. She looked up from her phone, distracted. My manager's relocating to Dubai. They offered me a regional lead role 6 months abroad. Huge pay bump. Her reaction was instant. Wide-eyed. Almost impressed. Seriously. I leave next month. I'll be traveling back and forth, but mostly based out there. I watched her closely. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her mind was doing calculations. Distance meant freedom. No more tiptoeing. No more fake study sessions. Arjun could move in emotionally, maybe even physically. I let her think it. For the next 2 weeks, I acted like a man preparing for departure. Printed fake emails. Left brochures for furnished apartments in Dubai on the coffee table. Took pretend calls at night with a regional team. I even booked a dummy flight using credit card points and canceled it the next day. She bought it all. Her kisses became slightly more affectionate. Guilt, maybe. Or maybe relief that soon she could slide me out of her life without mess. She didn't realize I wasn't leaving. I was just stepping off stage long enough to let them take the spotlight. And self-destruct on cue. The morning of my departure, she dropped me off at the airport. We hugged. She smiled. Text me when you land? Of course, I said. She drove off. I waited 15 minutes, walked through the terminal to arrivals, circled back out, and got into a cab. I didn't go to Dubai. I didn't leave the city. Instead, I checked into a short-term rental 3 neighborhoods away. 1 bedroom, minimal furniture, no distractions. For the next few days, I vanished from her life entirely. No calls. No texts. I went dark. She didn't know I was 10 minutes away. And she certainly didn't know I was watching. I logged every GPS ping. Noted her new routines. Dinner at Arjun's on Tuesday. Back-to-back study sessions on Thursday. Weekend getaways she called solo retreats. I hired a discreet investigator to follow her for 2 days. What he delivered wasn't shocking. It was surgical confirmation of everything I already knew. But the difference was, now it wasn't just betrayal. It was documentation. She thought I was in another country. She thought I was out of the picture. But I had never been more present in her life. Just invisible. And soon, unforgettable. The first time I realized I was the only one in the dark was during a conversation with her best friend. We hadn't spoken in months. But I needed confirmation, not just of the affair, but of how deep the lie ran. So I reached out through a new number. Called from a different name. Said I was doing a background check on Arjun for a prospective job offer. It was thin, but not suspicious. People respond fast when money's on the line. She answered after the second ring. He's brilliant, she said, without hesitation. A little reckless maybe, but smart. Got that confidence people eat up. I played along. Asked about his personal life. His ethics. Whether he had ever been in trouble. She hesitated. Not trouble exactly. I mean, nothing criminal. But his thing with Myra, he wasn't exactly innocent there either. I froze. Sorry, with who? Myra. You know. His girlfriend. The one the married one. I stayed silent. Oh my God, she whispered. You're not, are you her? I hung up. She called back twice. Left one voice note. I didn't know she didn't tell you. I thought you guys were over months ago. I thought. She said you were just roommates now. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a secret affair. It was a shared delusion. Everyone knew. Everyone but me. I didn't go for his throat. Not yet. I went for the paper cuts, the small slashes that don't bleed right away, but sting when you reach for something important. I still had access to her laptop. Arjun's resume sat in one of the shared folders, probably from a group project. He'd submitted it for some joint consultancy pitch. That document became my blueprint. I cross-checked every listed internship, achievement, and certification. 3 were inflated. 1 was entirely false, a role at a London firm that didn't exist beyond a 3-day workshop. That was all I needed. Using a fresh alias and a burner email, I forwarded a flagged resume to the university's ethics committee. No accusations. Just a tip. You might want to verify the credentials attached to this student before graduation honors are finalized. Then I waited. Arjun didn't lose his degree, but he got an email from the board. A formal inquiry. An in-person meeting scheduled. He didn't tell Myra. I know because her calendar still had him listed as celebration dinner the night of the meeting. Instead, he canceled on her last minute and told her it was a family emergency. That's how liars treat each other. Like mirrors. Always reflecting, never revealing. The next phase was implanting doubt. Not destruction, just tension. Paranoia. I created an anonymous email account with a vague name. Used it to send a single message to Myra's program director. Subject line: academic integrity concern. Sensitive message body. A student has been routinely absent from required sessions and submitting work completed entirely by another member of her project group. This includes portions of their consulting challenge entry. Her name is Myra V. I don't want to get involved, but it doesn't sit right with me to stay silent. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Universities are bureaucratic by design. They act slow, but they do act. A week later, I saw her checking emails at the table, shoulders tense. Everything okay? Just some admin mess, she said. They're reviewing group submissions. Someone sent an anonymous tip accusing us of. I don't know. It's nothing. Her tone said otherwise. Later that night, I saw her reworking her part of the presentation slides. She had no idea the threat wasn't coming from her academic record. It was coming from the man who once built her future and was now disassembling it, line by line. I had over 300 images, screenshots, location timestamps, photos from the investigator, hugging in hallways, entering hotels, leaving restaurants with clothes slightly misaligned, the half-second glances shared between people hiding nothing anymore. But I didn't want revenge porn. I didn't want a scandal. I wanted credibility. So I picked the most mundane shot of them together, laughing over coffee in a co-working space. A screenshot of a love note she sent. Your hands feel like home. I dream in your voice now. And her graduation speech. To Arjun, the love of my life. I stitched them together in a single image. Plain white background. No watermarks. No slander. Just facts. Then I created a burner account on LinkedIn, posing as a former peer in the MBA cohort. I joined a popular student forum used by job recruiters, alumni, and recent graduates. The post went up at 8:03 p.m. Before you hire someone who preaches ethics in the boardroom, you might want to know how they act in real life. Harvard MBA grad publicly thanked her affair partner at her graduation ceremony, while still married to the man who paid for her entire tuition. Proof attached. Make of it what you will. No names. No direct attacks. But people found her fast. She texted me 2 hours later. Someone's trying to ruin my name. Do you know anything about this? I stared at the message, then put my phone face down and kept eating. 2 days later, she came home earlier than usual. Shaky. Distracted. She didn't greet me. Just dropped her bag and sat on the couch. Someone sent something to my office. I turned slowly. What kind of something? She pulled a large white envelope from her bag and handed it to me. Inside, a printed photo of her on stage at graduation, microphone in hand, mouth mid-speech. The quote circled in red marker, to Arjun, the love of my life. Below it, a second note. Typed. No signature. You should have thanked your investor, not your co-star. She stared at me like she was searching for an answer, but didn't want to ask the question. You think someone's stalking us? Probably just internet drama, I said, calm. People post things. It blows over. She nodded slowly, but her breathing said otherwise. She poured herself a glass of wine she didn't finish, scrolled through her phone like it might offer her a way out. It didn't. That night, she sat in bed beside me, eyes open. The silence had returned, but now it lived between her ribs, not mine. I filed the paperwork on a Thursday morning. Quiet courthouse. Neutral expressions. The clerk glanced at the documents, nodded, stamped them. 2 sets. One addressed to her. One to her family. Grounds: marital fraud, financial exploitation, breach of fiduciary trust. This wasn't just divorce. I wasn't walking away quietly. I was pressing charges. She had used my funds to pay for a lifestyle I was explicitly excluded from. That made it actionable. The timeline of transactions, cross-referenced with proof of infidelity and deception, it all lined up. I didn't need a scene. I needed leverage. I timed the delivery. That evening, she was at dinner with Arjun. I knew because the reservation was visible in her synced Google Calendar. Their table was outdoor. Soft lighting. Shared dessert. 2 glasses of red. The process server approached calmly. Myra V. She turned, envelope in hand, right in front of Arjun. Her name, bold and legally sealed. She stared at it like it was radioactive. Opened it. Scanned the first page. Her face didn't crumple. It hardened. Then she looked up at Arjun. Said nothing. And I watched from across the street. Just a man with a hoodie, a coffee cup, and a front row seat. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And she finally was too. For the first time in a year, I slept soundly. Not because I was finished, but because she was unraveling exactly on schedule. Her name began disappearing from team rosters and school projects. Job recruiters stopped replying. One day, she came home and told me, casually, that she was taking a break from LinkedIn. That night, she drank alone. And I watched her without speaking. She was still trying to figure out where the leak was. Still checking over her shoulder, but never behind the right one. Then came the call from her mother. I only caught one side of the conversation. No, I didn't say that. It's complicated. Yes, I told them we split, because we had. Emotionally. When she hung up, she looked at me like I might attack her. But I didn't. I just said, so they know now? She nodded. Good, I said. Now we can stop pretending. I packed 2 bags that night and left quietly, without rage, without a word more than necessary. I left behind her mess. But I also left behind a second burner phone. And a camera. Just in case. Because people are never more dangerous than when they think they've lost everything. I found it by accident. I was backing up old bank statements to build my case for the financial suit, highlighting every tuition payment, every expense, every withdrawal from the joint account. That's when I saw it. A strange transfer I didn't recognize. A private account, hidden beneath a different user ID. A name I'd never seen before, Vara Consulting. It wasn't a company. It wasn't even real. But the transfer trail led to one thing, a crypto wallet. Registered 6 months ago. Under her name. I opened it. Current balance, $67,421 in Ethereum. Not invested. Not growing. Parked. She had been pulling money from our joint account in micro withdrawals. Rounding up payments. Shifting savings. Quietly, over months. Always under the radar. It wasn't for Arjun. It was her exit fund. That's when it hit me. She had planned to leave. But not for him. Not directly. He was the cover story. He was the heat. She was planning a life on her own. She'd let me think I was watching everything. And the whole time, she was planning her next chapter, too. Without him. Without me. Just gone. The first time I cheated, I didn't call it that. It was a conversation. Just a drink. Just catching up. Her name was Lena. We dated in college, before Myra. She moved away. Built a different life. She reached out once, a year ago, when she saw Myra's graduation post. I never responded. But a month ago, I did. We met in a quiet restaurant 2 towns over. No makeup. No masks. Just 2 people who used to mean something, sitting across from each other again. She asked how I was. I told her the truth, everything, stripped of polish. She didn't pity me. She listened. When we said goodbye, she touched my hand and said, "You're not crazy. You just stopped being stupid." It wasn't romantic. It was real. And in that moment, I realized something. I'd stopped being her husband long before Myra left me emotionally. I had just taken longer to admit it. She was planning a solo escape, but so was I. And while she had her crypto wallet and secret apartment listings, I had something better, the truth. And the full story was just beginning. Lena messaged me the next morning. "You okay?" I wasn't, but I was closer than I'd ever been. We met again. This time, I asked her if she remembered the job she once interviewed for. The HR firm with the database access, background clearance, financial records. She laughed. "I still have a login." I gave her a name. Vara Consulting. Myra's crypto laundering shell. Lena ran a trace. Through a payment processor routed via Southeast Asia. Nothing illegal, but deeply unethical. The type of thing that looks bad if attached to any job application, especially one in finance. I asked her, could this make her unemployable? She didn't answer with words. Just nodded, once slow. It wasn't about destroying Myra anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't rebuild on a lie. And this time, I wasn't going to stay in the shadows. Arjun was unraveling. I could see it online. His usually active posts had stopped. His mentorship listing disappeared. His LinkedIn was wiped clean within days of the university inquiry. I sent him one message. No threats. No rage. Just facts. She was planning to leave you too. You weren't the man she wanted. You were the shield. Ask her about the crypto wallet. No reply. But the next day, Myra came home and went straight to the liquor cabinet. She didn't speak. She drank. She thought she was being hunted from the outside, maybe by me, maybe by the internet, maybe both. What she didn't know was that the collapse wasn't coming from her enemies. It was coming from inside her house. She approached me finally, one glass too deep. "What do you want from me?" I looked at her. Truly looked. Not as my wife. Not as a woman who betrayed me. But as a person who underestimated everything I was capable of. "Nothing," I said. "It's already done." She stared at me like she didn't understand the sentence. That's what scared her most. 2 days later, it happened. Not a full arrest. Not handcuffs. But an escorted removal from the university. I watched it play out on a student WhatsApp group, screenshots flooding in. Security pulling Arjun aside mid-conference. Someone saying he doctored internship letters. Another whispering about data manipulation during the consulting competition. I didn't leak any of that, but I made sure others could find it. That's all it ever took. A spark. The dry leaves were already everywhere. His ego had stacked them high. Now he was under academic probation, pending review. Graduation suspended. Reputation shot. Visa status in question. Myra didn't go to class that day. She stayed in bed. I watched her pull the covers over her face and cry. Not for him. Not for us. For herself. Because now she knew. The exit she built was caving in. The backup plan failed. The clean break vanished. I sat at the kitchen counter, making coffee. Calm. For the first time, she wasn't in control. And I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was leading. It was time to finish what she started. Her academic future was still technically intact. She hadn't yet been suspended. The university was reviewing group submissions, but no action had been taken against her directly. She still walked like someone who believed she might weather the storm. So I tipped the scale. I wrote a formal letter to the ethics board. Not an emotional rant, not a dramatic expose. Just a structured, calm, well-documented report. Dated evidence of her absence from key deliverables email log showing Arjun submitting entire sections under both names, screenshots of her messages admitting she hadn't touched a damn slide. Financial records showing private payments tied to her off-the-books consulting group. I signed it anonymously. But I made sure they had no doubt who it was about. 2 days later, she received an email marked urgent academic review notification. She didn't speak for hours. Just stared at the screen. I watched her from the kitchen, like someone watching a building about to collapse from the inside. She stood up, poured herself a drink, and said, quietly, like she wasn't even talking to me, "They're freezing my degree." No crying this time. Just silence. And that silence was louder than anything I'd ever heard from her. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Former classmates asking if the rumors were true. Friends messaging her in panic, scared they'd be implicated. Recruiters canceling interview slots due to internal adjustments. One company ghosted her entirely. Then the email arrived. Subject: Notice of academic ineligibility for certification. She didn't even open it at first. Just stood there, staring at the header like it was radioactive. I watched from the hallway as she finally clicked in. Read every line. Read it again. Then she slid down the wall and sat on the floor. The letter was direct. Her final project had been found to contain substantial work not completed by her. The university was placing a hold on her graduation certificate, pending final investigation. Translation: She was now a liability, a PR risk. And worse, an example. They would make her the warning. I heard her whisper to herself, "They're going to erase me." She wasn't wrong, and I didn't feel satisfied. Not in the way I thought I would. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was truth finally catching up. It happened over a video call. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't have to be. I heard it through the wall, every word sharp and final. Her father's voice, calm, angry. "We gave you everything. And this is who you became." Her mother, tearful, but clear. "We don't recognize you anymore. How could you do this to him?" She tried to deflect, tried to explain. Blame pressure, burnout, Arjun's influence. But the damage was already done. They knew now. About the affair. The crypto fund. The lies. The ruined degree. The articles online. The public shaming. And they knew I had left her. Not yelling. Not breaking things. Just gone. Her father's final line before the call cut off: "You're on your own now. Don't come back here." She sat at the table afterward, phone face down, wine in hand. Eyes hollow. No more lies left to reach for. She finally realized there would be no rescue. No Arjun. No job. No degree. No family. Only the mirror. And the wreckage. And I hadn't even delivered the final blow yet. It started with a post. Not a rant. Not a vent. Just a title. I paid for her MBA. At the ceremony, she thanked the love of her life, and it wasn't me. Underneath, I wrote what needed to be said. Clean. Honest. Bulletproof. Asterisk: I worked 2 jobs to fund her education. I gave up my own career path so she could chase hers. I packed her meals, paid her tuition, supported her through breakdowns. I stood at her graduation while she thanked someone else. And that was just the beginning. Asterisk: she lied. She cheated. She stole. And when it came crashing down, she tried to rewrite the story. This is the truth. No dramatics. No exaggeration. Just receipts. Just reality. I attached the timeline. The screenshots. The voice notes. The fake consulting payments. The photos. I left out names, but anyone who needed to know already knew. The post went viral in under 12 hours. Shared across Twitter. Screenshotted to TikTok. Reddit front page. Comments poured in. Not sympathy. Validation. From strangers, from survivors, from people who had swallowed betrayal and buried their voices for too long. And suddenly, her story wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. By the end of the week, the narrative flipped. Where before there was gossip, now there was clarity. Recruiters began quietly rescinding her offers. Classmates deleted photos with her. A popular podcast reached out asking if I'd speak about financial exploitation in modern relationships. And then someone dug up the original graduation livestream. They clipped the moment. Into Arjun, the love of my life, the clip trended. View count skyrocketed. Memes followed. Investor husband energy became a phrase. There was a remix version on YouTube with trap beats behind her speech. It was cruel. Yes, but not unfair. Because for once, the internet wasn't laughing at a scandal. It was witnessing a reckoning. She called me twice. I didn't answer. She sent one long message apologizing without saying sorry, trying to justify without admitting fault. I didn't reply. She wasn't sorry. She was just exposed. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. The world had already done it for me. It was late. I was watching an old movie when the call came through. I don't know why I answered. Maybe because I didn't care anymore. Maybe because I wanted to hear her voice sound small. She was quiet at first. Then, I read what you wrote. I said nothing. I deserve some of it. Not all, but some. Still silence. I never hated you. You know that, right? I let her sit in that lie. Then I said, you didn't need to hate me to destroy me. You just needed to believe I'd never fight back." She breathed in sharply. Maybe a sob, maybe just air catching in guilt. "Is there anything I can say to make it right?" I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. "No. But there's a lot you can live with." Then I hung up. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt free. She asked to meet. Just once. Not to argue. Just to talk. I agreed. Not because I owed her that, but because I wanted to watch her sit across from the life she couldn't manipulate anymore. We met at the cafe near her old campus. The same one where I once waited hours for her during a study session that never existed. She wore no makeup this time. No fake smile. Just tension. "You look different," she said, trying to be casual. I didn't answer. She sipped her coffee without tasting it. "I didn't expect it to end like this," she whispered. "Neither did I said. "But only one of us planned an ending." She looked up, her face tight, her eyes holding back whatever she couldn't say. "Did you love me?" she asked. "Every day." She nodded, looked away. "And now?" I didn't rush the answer. "Now, I'm finally starting to love myself again." That was the last thing I said to her. And it was the last time we ever spoke. A week later, she sent a message. A long one. Apologizing again. More sincere this time. Or maybe just more broken. She talked about childhood fears. Pressure. Shame. Expectations. How her June had made her feel seen, but not safe. How she'd planned the crypto account out of panic. How she watched herself become someone she couldn't recognize. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because that version of me, the man who would have written back, no longer existed. Her apology wasn't enough. Not because it was too late, but because I'd already forgiven her in silence. And that silence didn't need a reply. Later that night, I deleted the message. Not out of anger. Out of peace. It came to me like a flash one night while I lay in bed, just the sound of her laugh. 3 years ago, over something small I'd said. And I remembered the first time she lied to me. It wasn't about Arjun. It wasn't even about love. It was about ambition. She told me she'd never leave me behind. That no matter what happened, wherever life took her, she wanted to build it with me. That was the moment I believed she was mine forever. That was the first lie. And the worst part? She meant it when she said it. That's what made it hurt. Not the betrayal, but the truth buried inside it, that sometimes people don't need to be evil to ruin you. They just need to stop loving you, quietly, and never tell you they did. I checked her Instagram once. Just once. Her bio was blank. All previous posts archived. No wedding photos. No graduation pictures. No trace of her June. Her profile had become a ghost town. Just a tagged photo from someone else's birthday party. Her face looked thinner. Tired. Trying to smile. She was working, from what I could tell, low-level consulting gigs. Contract jobs. Nothing stable. Nothing public. No title to brag about. No stage to stand on. A year ago, she was certain the world would applaud her. Now, she was just trying to stay employed. I didn't feel joy watching her fall. I felt distance. Like she belonged to a story I'd already finished reading. She had become a cautionary tale I didn't need to retell. And me? I wasn't done writing mine yet. I moved to a smaller place. Different city. Quiet neighborhood. Trees that rustled instead of sirens. I changed jobs, not because I had to, but because I wanted to start working for something that fed me, not just paid me. I took a trip with Lena. Nothing romantic. Not yet. We walked old streets we used to love. Talked about who we were, who we'd become. We sat at a lake one evening, watching the water move without trying to be anything else. She looked at me and said, "You're not angry anymore." "No," I said. "Just clean." We didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. But when we parted ways that night, I realized something. Peace isn't always soft. Sometimes it's earned like war. A podcast reached out a month later. The host had read my post. Said my story hit harder than most. They weren't after gossip. They wanted a conversation. So I went. Not for fame. Not for sympathy. For anyone sitting in silence the way I once did, funding someone else's dream while slowly disappearing from their own. The interviewer asked, "What was the hardest part?" I didn't hesitate, knowing I was still rooting for someone who'd already picked the other team. "And what did you learn?" "That the worst betrayal doesn't come from a stranger. It comes from someone who once swore they'd never hold a knife. There was a long pause after that. Then she leaned forward and asked, "If you could go back, would you do it differently?" I looked at the mic, thought about the nights I went without sleep, the second job, the fake smiles, the slow collapse, and I said, no, I'd still pay for her MBA. Why? Because it didn't change her. But it changed me. I needed to burn to know what I was made of. It came without a subject line, just a name I hadn't seen in months. Arjunar, the man who stood in my place, who held the mic beside her, who planned futures in a borrowed life. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for hours, letting it sit unread in my inbox like a test I no longer needed to pass. When I finally clicked it open, it was short. "You don't know me, but I owe you an apology. I didn't know she was married when we started. She said you were separated. Roommates. Financially tied but emotionally done. By the time I figured out the truth, I was in too deep to back out without shattering both of us. I know what that makes me. You didn't deserve what we did. You deserve to be seen. I hope you're better now. And I hope she never looks for you again." There was no defense. No excuses. Just a man writing from the rubble of his own reputation. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe him. Because I didn't need to anymore. Some apologies aren't invitations. They're obituaries. I archived the email. Didn't delete it. Didn't forward it. Just moved it out of sight, out of reach. Later that night, I went for a walk. Not to clear my head. Just to feel the world again. The air was clean. The city smaller. I passed a bookstore with its windows fogged from inside. Two teenagers argued over which novel was sadder, The Bell Jar or Norwegian Wood. I smiled. Not because of the books. Because once upon a time, I would have told Myra that story. Would have walked her inside and bought both, just to make her laugh. No, that version of me wasn't gone. He was just no longer waiting to be needed. That's what survival looks like. Not forgetting. Just outgrowing. She received it a month later. Myra. I wasn't supposed to know, but Lena heard through someone who still followed her. It was simple. A manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a single printed photo, the frame from her graduation, her on stage, eyes bright, mid-sentence. The same image I'd once sent her anonymously. Except this time, beneath it, a new note. Check your reflection. That was it. No threats. No signature. No closure. Just a mirror held up without mercy. They say guilt is like fog. It doesn't need a direction to smother you. She posted something vague the next day. Sometimes, the silence says more than the screams ever could. And then she vanished. No more posts. No online rants. No late-night poems disguised as apologies. Just quiet. Just gone. And I didn't smile. I just exhaled. Not because I won. Because it was finally over. She tried to claw her way back. 3 weeks after she disappeared from social media, I received a letter from her lawyer. She was exploring legal options in response to defamation and digital harassment. I laughed. Not out of arrogance. Out of exhaustion. Because even now, with everything burned down around her, she thought she could argue her way out of the ashes. I forwarded the letter to my attorney. He called me 10 minutes later. "She has nothing," he said. "No evidence. No case. Just bruised pride and a hope that you'll blink first." I didn't blink. A month passed. No follow-up. She had fired her lawyer. There's a point in every fight where you realize you're no longer swinging at someone else. You're shadowboxing your own regret. She wasn't coming for me anymore. She was trying to undo her own reflection. And by then, it was too late. It started with a DM. Then a call. Then a contract. A small publisher wanted to adapt the post. Not for drama. Not for gossip. But for honesty. They said the story had touched something raw. Not just about betrayal, but about self-worth, silence, and sacrifice. I almost said no. But then I thought about who I was 3 years ago, sitting at a table alone on our anniversary, waiting for a wife who was laughing in another man's apartment. I thought about the men, women, and friends who reached out in the comments, saying, "This happened to me too." I just never had the words. So I said yes. Working title. The tuition I paid with my soul. It wasn't revenge porn. It wasn't a tell-all. It was a mirror. Just like the one I once mailed her. but this time it was pointed inward, and it didn't hurt to look. I walked past a graduation ceremony the other day. Different campus, different crowd, same energy. Young faces lit with ambition, parents holding bouquets, students adjusting robes they dreamed of for years. I stood for a moment on the sidewalk, watching. A girl stepped up to the podium, voice trembling. She thanked her family, her professors, her partner, her dog. Everyone laughed, and I smiled. Not bitter, not bruised, just clean. I didn't feel envy. I didn't feel loss. I felt done. Because closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop waiting for them to. I turned, walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. It arrived by email. No subject line. No greeting. Just her name in the corner, and a message that looked like it had been rewritten 100 times before she hit send. I know I can undo it. I've replayed it all. The nights I lied. The looks I gave you when I already knew I was leaving. The speech. I thought I was becoming someone stronger, more independent. I didn't realize I was just getting better at betrayal. Arjun is gone. The degree is gone. My job offers too. I'm living in a flat I can barely afford. I work freelance now. Some days, I answer phones for a temp agency that doesn't know I once stood on a Harvard stage. But I'm not writing this to make you feel bad. I know that wouldn't work anymore. I'm writing because I finally understand what you were. Not just my husband. Not just my supporter. You were the only person in my life who told the truth, even when it hurt you. Thank you. For everything. I hope you never have to hear from me again. But just in case you ever wondered, you weren't the mistake. I was. I read it once. Then I closed the tab. Didn't reply. Didn't forward it to anyone. Didn't archive it either. Just let it sit there in my inbox, an unopened casket. Not for her words, but for the man I used to be. The one who loved her so deeply, he forgot his own name. He was gone now. And this was his eulogy. I never got revenge. Not really. No shouting matches. No broken plates. No viral confrontations in the street. I just told the truth. And in the end, that was enough. Because truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be heard once, and it never leaves. Now my mornings are quiet. No lies brewing in the other room. No anxiety waiting behind a phone screen. I wake up next to someone who asks how I slept and actually listens. I don't check emails with dread. I don't second-guess kindness. I look in the mirror and see a man who was betrayed, yes, but not destroyed. A man who rebuilt himself from silence, one truth at a time. And now, when people ask me who the love of my life is, I don't say a name. I say this, it's the version of me that survived. And now, to you, the ones watching, listening, feeling this in your chest. Tell me, was it worth it? Did the story hit you where it should? Did the truth sting? Did the payoff satisfy? Did you feel that final breath of freedom? Then do this, like this story if it made your heart beat a little faster. Share it with someone who's been there, because we all know at least one person who's given everything and gotten silence in return. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next real story we break open, piece by raw piece. And most of all, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, what was the moment that hit you hardest? Was it the speech? The silence? The final message? Let it out. Because this isn't just my story. It's ours now. Until next time, remember, some betrayals cut deep. But the right story heals even deeper.